what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 1246, Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran, and thank you so much, as always, for watching, for listening, however you are taking in the show. I appreciate you guys so much. Big shout out to today's sponsor, the law office of William Mattar. Heard in a car, call William Mattar, 444-4444. Call William Mattar today to get the compensation that you deserve. This is going to be our Buffalo Bills 2025 awards show. The good, the bad, the ugly. We'll get to it all today. As usual, I'm joined by my good friend from SB Nation, Matt Warren. It is balmy here right now, by the way, Matt. Buffalo, New York, late Tuesday morning when we're recording this. It's in the mid-30s, and I swear to you, it feels like you can wear T-shirts. I know some cycles do that anyway, but like you can legitimately get away with wearing like a really light fleece and some shorts right now. It feels gorgeous in Buffalo by comparison of what it's been anyway. How's it been over there? What's going on, man?
Yeah, it's the first day above freezing since the Bills lost to the Broncos. So that just gives you some perspective on how long it's been, and also like what we've been dealing with in the aftermath of the Buffalo Bills loss to the Denver Broncos. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. It's been bitterly cold here for a couple weeks, and I'm excited to, not have to bundle up like and cover every inch of like my face when I take the dog for a walk.
And for people who don't know, Matt is based in Batavia, so not far from Buffalo at all. It's kind of a good analogy too, how like it's been freezing every day since the Bills lost to the Broncos, but today it's warm. Well, because the season's over and now everybody's 0-0 again, and now we can start to look forward to a new season, which we're not doing today because we're going to go back and we're going to give out our 2025 Bills season awards. One of my favorite things on this show all season long has been our weekly gatherings here where we go through the team positionally with analysis, and then ultimately you would assign a grade for that week. Last week we did the entire season, which go back, everybody, if you didn't check that one out, it was fun to do. Like I said, award show today, but yeah, it's nice out in Buffalo. Yesterday being Monday, by the way, I'm sorry, people are listening to this on Wednesday. I don't know how it was in Batavia, but I saw a stat. It was literally the coldest day in a decade. 10 years, any day on the calendar. It was the coldest day in Buffalo Monday morning, 10 years. I saw people, unlike me, who whine and cry about the weather all the time. I see people who never bitch about the weather. They were tapping out on Monday. That's how freaking cold it was here. Crazy.
Yeah, there was some of the TV reports were like, my nose froze, my nostrils froze or whatever. I walked outside to take my kids to school, and like you could feel it in the back of your throat. You're like, oh, it is like super cold. I went to Potsdam for my undergrad and my master's, and I remember days where like my eyelashes would stick together as I was walking to class. Like, I know what cold is. That was cold, man.
Yeah, my wife usually tells me, dude, quit whining, shut up. You know what I mean? Because I'm always constantly bitching about the weather. Even she was bitching about the weather on Monday. Over the weekend, it was so cold, and I swear to you, this is not an exaggeration. I did not leave my house Saturday and Sunday last week. It was just, I didn't leave my house. I really did. And it was too cold. I got plenty of food. I didn't have to work. So I said, screw it, I'm staying home. I ended up booking a flight to Florida. Like literally, I'm like, it's
how cold you were?
Literally. I mean, I've been thinking about it, but I'm like, I always find a reason not to. I lived there for 5 years, so I got a ton of friends down there now. But yeah, it got so cold on Saturday. I was like, I'm so sick. I'm so over this that I finally got to a point. I really did. I jumped on Southwest.com and I booked a flight for, now it's not till like March 11th because that's the first time I'll have an opportunity to go, and it's probably going to warm up a little bit here, but yeah, I just started thinking about the Florida palm trees and the sun, and I was like, I can't take this no more, dude. I get out of here for a little bit. Before we get into the awards, Super Bowl on Sunday, quickly, we're all having fun here in Buffalo, a consolation prize of sort to be able to dunk on the Patriots. They just didn't look ready to be in that game, especially offensively. We can talk about that some, but I actually want to take a minute, too, to just kind of give Seattle their flowers, because I feel like by just continuing to shit all over New England the last couple of days, I'm not really, and we're not really collectively as a fan base, giving Seattle their just due. That was a really good football team. That was a worthy champion. I think they were the best team in the league this year, and they got rewarded with winning the Super Bowl. And I remember us talking, and we go back a little less than a year ago. They trade Geno Smith. They trade DK Metcalf. I'm like, are they resetting? You know what I mean? You got a young coach. Are they kind of resetting for the future a little bit? They add Sam Darnold, who, Minnesota decided they wanted to go McCarthy and they weren't going to pay Darnold. And, lo and behold, 10 months later, they're Super Bowl champions, man. And what an incredible run of draft picks that they've had over these last 3 years. I was looking at the list. I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. That safety, Emerald, I'm bad at pronouncing his name all the time, but
right.
He was a guy that a lot of people tied into the Bills last year. I mean, Byron Murphy, A.J. Barner, Witherspoon, JSN, of course, Derek Hall, Kenneth Walker, Kobe Bryant. So many of these, you look at their draft over the last 3 years, holy shit, they nailed it. But anyway, Matt, I'm sure you agree, a very worthy Super Bowl championship team this year.
Yeah, I think the game was a little bit misleading just because of how dominant Seattle was. But they were, I think they lost 3 games all last season by a combined 9 or 10 points.
Yeah,
it was just a ridiculous run that they went on. And so I was listening to Tyler Dunn talk about this somewhere else. I can't remember where. And he's it provides a different blueprint for teams, which I think is really important, right? We've always talked about drafting the franchise quarterback and developing the franchise around that franchise quarterback. But now we have this I've written about it a couple times at SBNation.com.
I was going to ask you about that next, because you actually wrote a column. I saw it in Buffalo Rumblings. What the Bills could take away. Yeah. What the Bills could take away from Seattle in the Super Bowl. Right. So yeah, to expand on that, kind of a few of the things you talked about in that piece as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, but so last year I wrote about the growth of the middle class quarterback for SBNation.com, and Sam Darnold is the pinnacle of that. We talked, it was Baker Mayfield, it was some of those Geno Smith, some of those other guys that had moderate success without making $40 million a year or more at the quarterback position. And now you can look at Darnold, who I think signed a 3-year, $100 million contract. So again, under $40 million a year. And then they build the team, not necessarily around him, but with him. And so you finally have this, different model for building a Super Bowl winning team. Have a suffocating defense, very good skill position players in Kenneth Walker III, in JSN, great tight ends, just a really solid roster. Almost the same way we've talked for years about building around that rookie quarterback while he's cheap, with whether it was Jalen Hurts or whoever. And so you can see other methods of doing it. Now, obviously the Chiefs and the Eagles have been able to do it with super expensive quarterbacks as well. So it's not like the Bills are behind the times or anything like that, but you can see the different ways to build a team. And then to your point, on Monday morning, I did write up, actually, I think it might've been Sunday night, at Buffalo Rumblings, what the Bills can learn from this and use it going forward. And I do think that it reinforces why Buffalo moved on from Sean McDermott. If you think the defense is what was holding them back, which I have not been, a stranger to saying that for years now, since at least 13 seconds, if not before. If you think the defense was what was holding them back, it's not like Sean McDermott's going to change his defense as the head coach. So you needed to separate the head coach from this team in order to get a different style of defense. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from the Seahawks game plan against the Patriots, and even the Patriots game plan. They had a really suffocating defense that made it real frustrating for Sam Darnold in that Seahawks offense as well. So it kind of all reinforces that the Bills probably made the right decision moving on from Sean McDermott.
Yeah, this is 2 straight years where there's been a really strong defensive team that has won the Super Bowl with a pass rush that is not one guy. It's not live or die with one guy. It's not Myles Garrett or Max Crosby kind. It's just almost like waves. really good penetration in the middle. I agree with you. It really, if you were wavering a little bit about Sean McDermott getting fired, I kind of feel like this Super Bowl, and especially if you look at the last 2 years, to your point, I agree. It kind of reinforces that I think it was time to move on. And it does get me excited about what Jim Leonard is going to do. Now, you got to have the Jimmy and the Joes, too. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
we'll see. And we'll spend a lot of time this offseason talking about potential guys and fits and things like that. Real quick, before we get into the award show, too, the next 2 days here on Talking Buffalo. So I got Matt with me today. Tomorrow's show, Thad Brown, Buffalo Bills beat reporter from Rochester. He's going to be on with me. That's going to be the Thursday podcast, live video, 9 p.m. Wednesday. And then I'll tell you what, Matt, a nice treat, something different. Thursday night, 8 p.m., Imperial Pizza. I got a high school football player. His name's Elijah Kimball from Canisius. I don't know if you know this. He is literally the most highly recruited running back in the history of Western New York, ever. One of the most recruited players ever, period. I mean, I'm talking Gronk, Chad Kelly, TJ Wheatley. About a decade or so ago, this kid has gotten offers from Notre Dame, you name it. And he's down to like his final 10 now, which, by the way, it's a list that includes Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, Florida, Miami. So I'm going to have him on Imperial Pizza, have some wings, eat some pizza, shoot the shit. I'm going to learn a lot about this kid. I've heard incredible things about him, man. I'm excited about that, but it's fun to have somebody like that, a big future on the show. Yeah.
Hopefully he can commit to somewhere on your show and you can break it, man.
Syracuse is in his top 9, by the way. I don't think that's going to happen, but hey, you never know. It's in his top 10, but it's pretty cool. But yeah, just to be able to sit down and talk, I'd love to know and learn, and I will, kind of what that process is like. What's it like to have coaches from Notre Dame and Michigan and Ohio State, calling you every day, showing up at your door, the recruiting process of all of it, to be able to sit down and have that kind of conversation with somebody who's literally going through it right now. I think that's going to be really cool. So
I agree. Yeah.
Maybe someday down the road, he'll be winning a Buffalo Bills or another NFL team award, end of the season award. But he's not this year. So let's get into these. This is our Bills award show, like Talking Buffalo Honors, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah, I should have wore my tux or something. I don't know.
I know. Well, I tried. You know what, though? The back screen, it's a red carpet background look on the video side, but we cover most of it, so you can't really tell. So it's kind of a failed attempt there a little bit. This isn't all good, though. You know what I mean? Like winning the Oscars, everything's good. This isn't all good. This is the good, the bad, the ugly of the 2025 season award style. Some of these are obvious, so I'll tell you what, for as many as you want, if you want to have a runner-up or an honorable mention, you can name that. But you're going to hand out the awards, and then afterwards, I'll tell you if I agree with you and what I would pick. But officially, these are the Matt Warren SB Nation Buffalo Bills Awards, just so we're clear about that. We'll start with MVP. Again, I don't want to direct anything, so the floor is yours. But we'll start with the big one right away because I think there's other ones where maybe they're a little more debatable, maybe. But 2025 Buffalo Bills MVP. What do you got?
Yeah. I mean, I went with Josh Allen. He got 2 NFL MVP votes. I think he's the favorite for the 2026 MVP as of this moment on Tuesday, February 10th. So I went with him. I think, especially given how, and we've talked about this repeatedly, given how frustrating this season probably was for him, taking what the defense gave him, not being able to necessarily push down the field as much as he wanted to with the wide receiver group that he had. I have to give him a ton of credit for how he played in 99% of, the time he was on the field. So Josh Allen's MVP. I give an honorable mention to James Cook, NFL rushing leader. So I think that if you pick somebody else, you're probably not watching this team very closely.
Yeah, you're trying too hard to mix things up. I thought this was, and I agree with you, by the way, both your award and your honorable mention. I have the exact same as well. But since this is probably the only time we're going to talk about Josh on this episode, I'll say this. When you look at statistically, like this wasn't a great season. I think this was the fewest touchdown passes he's thrown since 2019, although he did still have 39.
He only scored 39 touchdowns this year, you know.
Yes, goddamn Dawson Knox, you stopped the streak in Cleveland. But anyway, look, I thought the Philly game, he was awful. Aside from that, I thought he had a really good season. We complain about the wide receiver room all the time. Imagine how Josh Allen feels when those are his receivers, where you and I are talking about the games. I thought he played well. There were some games like the Houston game where maybe he looks bad, but it was not his fault. He's under siege the entire game. Atlanta, Miami, the team didn't come to play. I mean, he wasn't perfect in these games. And he did have more turnovers. I mean, he had double the turnovers that he had last year. So it was not a perfect season by any means for Josh Allen. I'll say that too. He did make more mistakes, unforced errors, to use a tennis term, than he certainly did last year when he won the real MVP. But yeah, how could you go with anybody else? I mean, what are we doing here if you disagree? This one might be easy too. It's kind of like the just like NFL honors for real. Offensive player of the year. What do you got?
I mean, I went with James Cook, the NFL rushing leader. I think it's pretty clear that he was, if Josh Allen is, I guess the alcohol content in the drink, then James Cook is the straw that stirs that drink. And so
good point.
I really liked what he did all off season. His vision, all season, his vision was great. He made the offensive line look better and better each week as well. I did want to shout out both Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir. I think they at least deserve, a mention in this particular conversation. Not necessarily Kincaid's raw numbers, but when he was on the field, he was the difference maker for this Bills offense. And I know they threw out the stat a lot of, all of Josh's interceptions or something were when Kincaid wasn't on the field or whatever the stat was coming down the stretch. So I just at least wanted to mention the two of them.
What a refreshing breath of fresh air you are right now to talk about Dalton Kincaid after 2 straight days of Joe from Queens on this show, who I don't know what it is, but he looks at box score numbers and he just doesn't want to give Dalton Kincaid any credit. And I was literally arguing with him. Go back, listen to yesterday's show, everybody. Literally, we got in an argument during the show where I'm like, dude, do you understand that it's not even just, to your point, his raw numbers. It is how much better that offense is when he's out there. Now, listen, he does need to be available more often going forward. That is a legitimate concern. Playing 12 games a year and, 2 or 3 other games where you're not even close to 100%, that's very worrisome. But when he's out there, man, he's just a big difference maker. But to your point with James Cook, I'm blown away. 1,912 yards from scrimmage, and he had 2 carries against the Jets in Week 18. There's no doubt he gets to 2,000 total yards if he plays in that Jets game, if they need that game. I remember having some conversations with you going back to training camp, and I expected James Cook to be good, maybe build a little bit on his last season, but he carried this team often offensively. Fumbling can be an issue, though. I mean, he did lead all NFL running backs in fumbles, and that reared its ugly head in Denver, and that cost him. So it's not like he doesn't have things to improve on, but yeah, this is a no-brainer, too. Offensive Player of the Year, James Cook. Flip side of the ball. A little interested in this. I don't know if it's quite cut and dry. We'll see what you think, but who's the Buffalo Bills Defensive Player of the Year for 2025?
I hopefully went with something different than you did. I'm going with Cole Bishop's safety. I thought he was very, very good this season. I have a runner-up, but I don't want to mention him just yet because we have other awards coming. I thought he was so good on the back of the defense. He led the team in tackles. He just was very good. So I'll go with Cole Bishop. Did he lead the team in interceptions too? I think he did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
3.
He did. Okay.
3. Going back to yesterday's show, one of the more embarrassing parts for me, Joe and I do right before the season starts, our season predictions. And then at the end of the year, we go back, we read them off, and we kind of go back and see what we got right and wrong. He nailed Cole Bishop. I actually had Taylor Rapp leading the team in interceptions coming into this season, so that didn't work out. I said this one was tough, and kind of a coin flip. In your case, 100% I can get behind. Because you could say, where would that position be without Cole Bishop this year? Because the rest of it was a disaster, literally. I mean, Jordan Poyer helped out. But again, that was Jordan Poyer's bigger contribution was making Cole Bishop play better somehow, some way. If Cole Bishop's not in there and you have a Hancock Jordan Poyer combination, I don't know how that works out. So sure, but close, very close. But I still go with Greg Rizzo, even though it's really close. I was not happy with him, but early on, but I thought in the back half, I thought he was really good. 7 sacks, tackles behind the loss, consistent pressure. He was the one guy that was just when you look at AJ Epinesa and Joey Bosa and every other freaking jet sweep or whatever, or any outside zone run, they're getting caught inside. Greg Rizzo was just being stout against that. I don't know if he finished, and I know PFF is PFF, whatever, but he was number 1 against the run for PFF for a good chunk of the season. So again, he is who he is, a well-rounded, even season for Greg Rizzo. I don't know if he's ever going to get 10 sacks at this point. Who knows? But it's close.
But yeah, led the team in sacks, was super important in their run game, defense. I think it's a really strong take.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's get to another one, then we'll take a break here. Best rookie. Who is the 2025 Buffalo Bills Rookie of the Year?
I went with Deanne Walker for this, and it's not really a surprise. He flashed all over the place. 4 passes defended, a fumble recovery, a sack, 39 tackles. And then he had a really nice playoffs as well with an interception, two passes batted down, 6 tackles. I wanted to say Jackson Hawes. I really did, because I like him so much and I like watching him so much. But I think Walker made the bigger impact on the field, even with Hawes's blocking and his the tight end stats.
I am with you, by the way, 100%. Deanne Walker is my winner. Jackson Hawes would be my runner-up. Deanne Walker, a lot of potential too, a lot of flash. Like, I don't know that the consistency is there yet. It wasn't, but you just see the potential. He oozes with potential. And I think when you're going back and you're reviewing the 2025 season, one of the great developments is that, hey, the Bills might have themselves a really, really good defensive tackle. And going back to draft time, because the Bills moved up in the 4th round to get him, Brandon Beane said, and there's a lot of people down on Brandon Beane lately. A lot of people think everything he says is full of shit, but you go back to the draft, and he said that if Deanne Walker was having back issues, if he would have been healthy and came out the year before, he would have been a 1st-round draft pick. He looked like somebody who could play like a 1st-round draft pick, so I think that was actually pretty spot on right there. The thing, though, and this kind of speaks to Brandon Beane's almost like draft record, you just named the 4th round pick as the Rookie of the Year, and the 5th round pick is the runner-up. More good to great day 3 drafting for Brandon Beane. Injuries certainly played a role, but night 22 so far, returns not great, right?
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, I don't think Max Hairston played poorly. I thought he really played well when he was in there. He had 2 injuries that, I mean, are regrettable, obviously, but aren't necessarily like something that concerns me going forward. Like if we go into the season with Max Hairston, penciled in as the starting outside boundary cornerback outside of Christian Benford, I don't think anyone's going to be concerned about that. So I don't necessarily think that that's a ding on Brandon Beane. The other 2 guys that we'll probably talk about here coming up next, I mean,
let's get to that next. Let's just, it's a perfect, you just segued it perfectly. So best rookie, Deanne Walker. Most disappointing rookie.
Right. Okay. So for this, I like this word disappointing. So the most disappointing rookie was Dorian Strong, because I was super hyped up for him after the preseason and training camp. I really wanted to see what he could do. And I'm so disappointed that he didn't get to play this year. And I mean, he just said his surgery. I'm really hopeful he can make a comeback and play in the NFL. It just sucks whatever he's going through. I know they haven't really released a whole lot of information, but neck surgery never the preferred method of dealing with certain things. And so I think most disappointing rookie, that's where I am. But as far as like, another one, Landon Jackson, 3 games, like disappointing, not necessarily because he played bad, although he did play bad, but like just, it was mostly disappointing because he wasn't able to play more than 3 games.
I am, yeah, disappointing might be tough terminology there. My pick is Landon Jackson too. And I agree with what you said about Dorian Strong. It really sucks too. I mean, he's a week 1 starter.
Yeah.
He played pretty well. A lot of promise.
Right.
Would have been nice to have him at the end of the year. Yeah.
They could have used him instead of Dave Jackson.
Yeah, exactly. Prayers for Dorian Strong too, man. Promising future, hopefully, and hopefully the surgery goes good and he's able to play football again and get to live out his dream. I really hope that works out for him. From a football field standpoint, to me, it's Landon Jackson. And look, I am chock full of awful takes, draft takes. Yes. I did not like Landon Jackson from the get-go. I was pretty vocal about it. And for all the things I got wrong, one of the things I know I would have been right on is I pounded the table for Xavier Watts, either the second or the third round, and the Bills could have had him in the second or the third round. They took Landon Jackson. I get the sentiment at the time. Joey Bosa's on a 1-year deal. AJ Epinesa, they know he's going to be a free agent after 2025, so they're trying to groom that next guy. It just didn't look, even going back to training camp when he was healthy, it just didn't look right to me. And now, with his new defense, and Jim Leonard coming in and the way he likes to play defense, I don't know that he's going to work out in Buffalo. So that's not good. TJ Sanders, too, you can make a case. I mean, but in fairness to him, he was kind of getting, it was like a yo-yo with him. It was, you know what I mean? You're playing tackle. No, you're playing edge. You're playing tackle. You're playing edge. I'm interested in seeing how he works out with this new defensive coordinator and their whatever new, schemes that they play. But those day 2 picks, both of them, partially because of injuries. Injuries were a role factor for sure. But I don't know. I didn't really love what I saw from TJ Sanders early in the season before the injury and kind of sort of after that as well. But again, he was juggling positions. So, but I don't know. Day 2, not good. Day 3 for the Bills, draft picks, real good. All right, let's take a real quick break. Come back. We'll get through some more. Matt Warren, SB Nation, is with me right now. Of course, this episode is brought to you by William Mattar. All right, so we're doing our Buffalo Bills 2025 season awards. What was the best offseason pickup or move? I don't even have you in frame right now, and now I do. There he is. There's Matt Warren. Best offseason pickup or move for the Buffalo Bills 2025.
I know some people are going to say Shaq Thompson right off the bat, but it was Trey White. Trey White, they would have been absolutely screwed without Trey White. And not just Trey White, the body being in there, at cornerback. He played at a very high level this year, higher than I would have ever hoped for. I had very low hopes for what he was going to bring to this team. And I remember even when he signed saying, like, it's just the floor, like, they're going to get better than Trey White at cornerback. And then they did. They drafted Christian Benford. They drafted Maxwell Harrison.
Yeah.
But then Trey White still had to play a ton in this season and play it at a high level. And without him, they would have been just royally screwed at the cornerback position. So Trey White is the answer here. And Shaq Thompson is a very high honorable mention because they would have been in a real bad spot at linebacker without Shaq Thompson.
I think you positioned that perfectly because, man, if Trey White, if he's not here or if he looks like he did with the Rams at the beginning of last year, you're looking at Benford and then Dorian Strong gets hurt because that still happens. You're looking at a washed-up Trey White or a Dane Jackson getting a lot of run, a Jamarcus Ingram's having to start at corner. It could have gotten really ugly. Shaq Thompson was a big lift. I mean, he was hurt a lot, but he still gave this team a big lift. But look, I think the drop-off from Shaq Thompson to, say, Joe Andreessen would have been noticeable without question, but not as noticeable as Trey White to Dane Jackson. So 100%. And, God, it was so weird with Trey White because he looked good at camp, and then he looked a little shaky near the end of it. And I think it was the Giants preseason game, the first preseason game. We played like one series and it felt like the Giants were picking on him. I was like, reading way too much into quarter one of the first preseason game. I was like, oh, I don't know, man. But then he just settled in and he was instrumental to this Bills defense. Kind of a side question for you here. I'm seeing already a lot of like on other shows or people writing about, off-season planning and stuff. A lot of people are saying, well, you got to get Trey White back here. I don't know because first of all, does Trey White want to? I know he loves Buffalo, but he knows if he signs, he's not going to be guaranteed a starting job. You got a first-round pick if he stays healthy that you invested in. The Bills want Max Searson, a more of a cover or a press guy in a Jim Leonard defense. I kind of feel like that's the better fit, and he's a first-round pick. So, number one, you're far from guaranteed any starting position. Number two, you don't really have special teams value as a backup corner because Trey White doesn't do special teams. And to the point of what we're talking about, last but not least, he played good enough to get paid, didn't he? Like, there's 31 other teams. Based on what I saw this year, Trey White certainly looks like a starting cornerback on a football team that should get a pretty decent contract. Nothing huge, but it's not like he's going to sign with the Bills for $2 million for 1 year. He earned himself a payday, right?
I think probably more than $2 million. I don't know if he earned a huge contract or anything like that, but I mean, we think about what a guy like Rasul Douglas made in free agency last year or things like that. And I think you do see a number that would probably not be beneficial to the Bills right now. And you didn't mention this. He was a Sean McDermott draft pick. He was like a Sean McDermott guy. And so I don't know if necessarily, I know he loves Buffalo and he loves the Bills, and I'm sure he's probably got a decent relationship with Brandon Beane and all that stuff, but it is a completely different defense than he's played in his entire time in Buffalo. And so I could definitely see him going to Green Bay with Bobby Babich or something along those lines. To your point, it's just a different style of defense that maybe doesn't fit him as well as some others might.
100% between the style of defense, between the player, and again, him earning a starting job. How much money he gets remains to be seen. But one thing I'm pretty confident in, he's a starting caliber corner. And for him to come in and have to compete with Max Searson, and again, have no special teams value, what a nice luxury it would be to have a Trey White as a backup corner. But do you really roster backup cornerbacks who don't play special teams? I don't think so. So I would actually be, at this moment anyway, I'd be surprised if Trey White is back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Worst offseason pickup.
It is not Joey Bosa. I'm just going to immediately say it right off the bat. He stayed healthy. His regular season was good. He underperformed in the playoffs. That stinks, but it is not Joey Bosa. I'm just throwing it out there because it's going to be the argument that people make. I'm going with Elijah Moore, and I don't think it's particularly close. He had 61 catches for 538 yards last year for Cleveland. His career average was 500 receiving yards and 40-something catches, and he just was nowhere near that for the Buffalo Bills. And it's not for lack of a quarterback. It's not for lack of a passing game. He just sucked with the Bills for whatever reason. Joe Brady didn't want to force the ball to him, whatever. But him being inactive when he's getting 40 catches and 500 receiving yards with, Joe Schmuck, whoever's throwing for the freaking New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns, and he can't even get 20 catches for the Bills. Come on. It's Elijah Moore.
I love it. It took quite a while. It took a long time, but we finally are not in agreement on something. You just said you're making it clear that it's not Joey Bosa for the crowd who's going to say it is. Well, put me in that crowd who says that it is Joey Bosa, and I'm going to tell you why. Based on the first half of the season, impactful, absolutely. And he did stay healthy. I'll give him that. That was a nice, pleasant surprise. And I would offer him the excuse that I do think he played too many snaps, and I do think that affected his play later in the season. That's not his fault. That was other guys not staying healthy and or being ineffective. Like whatever happened to Javon Sullivan being a good second year 2 pass rusher, that never materialized. And I talked about my great Xavier Watts take, my terrible with you personally on our show because you were with me when I said, well, my big bold prediction is Javon Sullivan's going to get 6 to 8 sacks for the Bills this year. He was barely playing 6 to 8 snaps a game for the Bills this season. But anyway, there's a lot of fair things here. But the bottom line is the dude had 1 sack in his last 9 games. He was an absolute run liability. But most importantly for me, I've learned this now with this team since 2020. I grade them with a curve. I care a lot more about what you do in the playoffs than what you do in the regular season. He was abysmal in the playoffs. When the Bills needed him, he was absent. He did 0. And he got away with, man, if Trey White does not have that pass interference, Joey Bosa was going to blow the game anyway with that stupid late hit. He just didn't give them anything, Matt. He gave them nothing when they needed it the most. So that's why I consider it the worst offseason pickup. That's
5 forced fumbles, 5 sacks, both
all in the first half of the season. He was the 2025 best offseason pickup if we did this at the halfway point of the season at the bye week. I thought he was garbage when they needed him most. I also don't agree with your my honorable mention is different than yours too. Same position though. I got Josh Palmer.
Well,
Josh Palmer, man. Dude, he got $9 million. 330 yards? What's funny is Elijah Moore and Palmer combined had 0 touchdowns this year. So we can let them share the I'm not gonna push back on Elijah Moore because everything you said is 100% right. He stunk. So did Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer, I kept waiting. I'm like, he's gonna break out. He's gonna have the big game. Every Friday I do a bold predictions for the game episode with a game preview. And I kept saying this is gonna be the game. 80 yards and a touchdown, 100 yards, this and that. Nothing. Hurt, didn't stay healthy. Bad contract. He's basically 1 year later from Curtis Samuel in terms of shitty Bills wide receiver contracts. But I'll buy Elijah Moore too. So I mean, like I said, we can have them share. Okay. We could go on about Joey Bosa the rest of this episode.
I definitely looked at Palmer for this. I mean, it's not like it was off the table. Like, so yeah.
Some of these get a little bit redundant here, these next two. So I don't know if we really can offer something new that a player we haven't mentioned or said, but the category is most pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I gave Trey White the best offseason pickup. So if we're in the instance of spreading it around, I do think the most pleasant surprise is Matt Milano playing at such a high level for this season. Trey White's definitely my most pleasant surprise, but I already gave him the best offseason pickup. So I'm going to go with Matt Milano for this just to spread the love.
Yeah, I could have said Trey White too, but to your point, we call him the best offseason pickup. I like that Matt Milano take. That's a good one. We kept waiting for him to fall apart. Like, I was like, well, by the end of the season, he's going to be a shell of himself. He's not going to be on the field or he's going to be bad. And he wasn't.
Every other game, you're just like, oh man, it's a Matt Milano game. Like he just blows up a play in the backfield or it just makes like a huge run fill or whatever. And he just kept coming back. And speaking of coming back, I would certainly welcome him back. Although I don't necessarily know how he's going to fit into, like we said before with Trey White, I don't necessarily know how he's going to fit into the new Jim Leonard defense.
One of the things we're going to talk about a lot in the coming weeks, Matt, is we kind of don't know who's going to be. You can't completely redo a defense in 1 year. I think there's a handful of players that even if they don't necessarily look like the best fit for the defense that he's wants to run or has run before, he might have to make do with the players he has to kind of form a system, at least in year one. It might take you 2 years to completely get all 11 guys that kind of you want for your system. So there might be some guys who, quote unquote, don't look like the best fits that are going to end up being back. Now, I don't know if Matt Milano was one of them. You sold me on that, by the way. I didn't think of Matt Milano, but as you said that, I could get behind that. I think he was a really good surprise just because he stayed healthy late in the season and was a factor for the defense. Originally, I had Deion Walker just because, again, I really did not expect much from him. I thought it was going to be Ed Oliver and TJ Sanders, and it ended up being Deion Walker playing a big role. All right, let's flip it here. Most... and again, I don't know if disappointing is the right word because you made up a good point about Dorian Strong, but I'm going to stick with that. The most disappointing player award, if you want to call it an award.
Right. So I went with Michael Hoyt. just because what we did see with him was so freaking good.
Sure.
And then then he gets hurt and it's just like, oh, damn it. Like this, he would have been so perfect for this stretch run where they needed pass rush help. They needed to get TJ Sanders away from defensive end. Like it just would have been such a perfect player to plug in that it was so disappointing when he got hurt. So that's where I'm going with this. Not necessarily because he played poorly. I thought he played really, really well. We just didn't get to see enough of him.
Two games. And I talked about it on the show yesterday too. I was envisioning if he stays healthy, I think this pass rush would have been a lot better down the stretch and maybe against Denver when they needed it. I'm going to flip the script on you though, because again, now that I think about it, disappointing was the wrong term. Yeah. I said most pleasant surprise. Let's say worst player. Surprise? Worst surprise. Yeah, we'll call it the worst surprise. I'm putting you on the fly now in the moment because, again, I didn't initially say this one, but instead of most really disappointing, most unpleasant surprise. On the fly, who's the most unpleasant surprise? Right.
It's the wide receiver room beyond Khalil Shakir, just generally speaking. It would be your Palmer, your Josh Palmer. It would be like that kind of thing. Just because they weren't, all of them underperformed their yearly averages, their game averages, their the raw stats, everything. So if you want, this would be my Josh Palmer pick. This would be my, even Gabe Davis to a certain extent, definitely Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel. Like the fact that Brandon Beane threw so many things against the wall and none of them could stick. Like we saw it at linebacker. He threw like 3 or 4 things against the wall. Shaq Thompson stuck. Cornerback, we threw a bunch of stuff at the wall. Trey White stuck. Wide receiver, they throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. Nothing. And so that's my biggest disappointment of the season for sure.
Yes. The room. Specifically, I had Keon Coleman. I expected a lot more from him, and we got it in week 1, which kind of makes everything else that happened feel even shittier. He was a beast at camp. Again, a beast in week 1, and then so I have him. Honorable mention, I got Terrell Bernard too. I mean, he's the captain. He gets a new contract and not healthy. And again, it's kind of like Dalton Kincaid on the other side of the ball where you worry about the guy staying healthy. But unlike Kincaid, where I just think this team is significantly better when he's on the field, I don't know that they are when Terrell Bernard's on the field. Not after what I saw from Shaq Thompson, So that was disappointing for me in that way. All right, let's get to 2 team ones here. Best game. What was the award for best game?
I picked the Chiefs game. It was a really fun game to watch, but really, I mean, the game I had the most fun watching was the Steelers game. Just watching them like call the same play over and over and over again, and just like completely demolish the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are, when they kept coming up with stats that it's the first time in 50 years the Steelers gave up this many rush yards or whatever. It's just like it kind of warms your heart a little bit. And so I picked the Chiefs game just because I thought it was more important, and I really liked that game. I thought it was a really fun game to watch, but I can definitely see the Steelers game. The Ravens game for 3.5 quarters was not a good game. So like people are like, oh, the Ravens game was so exciting. No, it was not. I was punching chairs. Like this was not a good game. So I like the Chiefs game. I like the Steelers game to your point. I mean, they went into this game without Deion Dawkins and without Spencer Brown. I'm like, oh shit. You got Alec Anderson and Ryan Vandermark against with Watt and a really good front 7 Steelers defense, and they just destroyed them. So that could be up there. I'm going with the game that you're gonna be like, what in the hell are you talking about? But you ready? My favorite game is the Carolina game. Sure. Here's why. 2 reasons. Number 1, James Cook ran for over 200 yards in that game. Shakir had like 88 yards receiving, but it was the one game for even a half where you see Michael Hoyt and Ed Oliver in the interior on that defense, and you got a true look for a brief amount of time of what this defense could be. A healthy, back in the lineup, Ed Oliver and Michael Hoyt coming off a suspension. Those guys just looked utterly unblockable, and Ed got hurt in that game, and then Hoyt got hurt the next week against the Chiefs, and bam, they're both gone. But for that one half, I really saw a glimpse
of what Brandon Beane's vision, of what Sean McDermott's vision for this defense could be. And it was freaking scary. So that's why I got Carolina, not because they beat a backup Andy Dalton or, you know what I mean?
Right.
Although they were a playoff team.
I can dig it. Like, I also want to throw out week 18 was a really fun game. Go Mitchie Trubisky. Like, there we go.
All right, let's flip the script here. Worst game.
For me, it was the Falcons game. It was such a disappointment. The Falcons were garbage. Michael Penix was garbage most of the season, and the Bills let them beat them. And that's really what put them behind the 8 ball. Like, losing to the Patriots is okay if you come back the next week and you beat the Falcons. Obviously, I'd prefer not to lose to the Patriots, but it's okay if you come back and beat the Falcons. And then to score 14 points against them, to absolutely have the game dictated to you on really both sides of the ball, it just was really crappy. I know you're probably going to say the Eagles game, but
no,
that Falcons game was trash.
No, the Falcons game is my honorable mention because it was just so annoying because, man, you knew what they were going to do. They had Drake London and they had Bijan Robinson, and that's what they had, nothing else. And you still let them do whatever they wanted to do for an entire half, before you woke up a little bit in the second half, and it was too late. But for me, it was the Miami game, week 10. You're 6-2.
Yeah.
You know, you're still in play for the division. You're 6-2. Miami fired their GM that week.
We talked about the playoff scenarios over and over again, and it was because they had 2 divisional losses and New England didn't have any until the Bills beat them. And so that was the tiebreaker. So in the grand scheme of things, it was probably the most important game of the entire season outside of the loss to the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, and there was rumors that the Bills were going to trade for Jalen Waddle. They didn't, and Jalen Waddle beats Max Saracen for a long touchdown in that game. The Bills just didn't show up. They lost 30-13. They were outplayed, and it was just an embarrassing day. And it was very costly because, like I said, the Bills were 6-2 and in the hunt in the AFC East, and that kind of put them out of the hunt for the rest of the year. All right, I got 2 more awards here. Number 1, best singular play of the season.
I've got a few written down here, and so I'm really interested to hear what you'd think. The one I ended up settling on was Ed Oliver's forced fumble in week 1, just because of how I thought Derrick Henry was just going to like absolutely demolish the Buffalo Bills for the rest of that game, and that game was over. And it was the turning point. It was such a massive game. It was such a massive moment in that game that I went with Ed Oliver's forced fumble. But I've got 2 others written down, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
All right, well, I got 1, and then we'll go back to your 2 or 1 if it's one of mine. Well, it's the Jacksonville game, and it's the interception at the end.
Yep.
Big controversy, you know, the Bills, did they score too early? Should they have scored too early? You know, we could debate that to the end of the earth. But Jacksonville's got the ball. They got a kicker who can, you know, make a 70-yard field goal. You're still shitting your pants a little bit, man. That game's far from over. And then bam, Trey, and you co-share this because Trey White gets his hands on the ball, and then Cole Bishop, who was your defensive player of the year, comes down with the interception. That literally won the football game and sent them to Denver. So that's my play of the year. What did you have?
That was the other one I had. And then Christian Benford's pick 6 of Joe Burrow that completely turns that game around. And again, when you felt almost like hopeless, whatever you want to say, like it just was, it was such a turning point moment that it was, I mean, it was a really cool play too. So
yeah, I hate to end an award show on a negative award, but we just did best play. What's worst play? But here's the caveat: you cannot count the Brandon Cooks no catch. That's excluded from consideration. I mean, that's just too obvious that that's the worst play of the season. The Bills quite possibly go to the Super Bowl if Brandon Cooks holds on to that football and completes the catch. If he didn't, whatever. But what's your worst play?
I actually had the Cooks play as my second worst play, so it wasn't even my number 1. So
what's your number 1?
My number 1 was Josh Allen's fumble before halftime, and because it was so bad, it was so stupid from coaches to Josh Allen to the fact that we couldn't fall on it or whatever. It was so bad. It gave the Broncos 3 points in a close game that they needed, at the end. And so, James Cook's fumble was bad. The interception was bad, but that fumble right before halftime was brutal.
Yes. And I'm with you, and I completely agree. That was my worst play too, because it's kind of a microcosm of what could be wrong with the Bills. Like that singular play is Sean McDermott and or Joe Brady being reckless before the half with nothing to gain. It's stupid coaching. That was just dumb coaching with no timeouts. There's no chance. No matter what happens when Josh Allen takes off running, there's no chance that anything good's going to happen. He's not going to go 80 yards to the house, and he's not going to be able to run another play. So nothing good can happen. That was awful coaching. You got to protect him against yourself. I've said this before. And then from Josh Allen's perspective, you know what? Your coach is screwed up. They let you go. Have the mindset that, you know what? I got to get down. Look at this. No, be more situationally aware. And as great as Josh Allen is, and sometimes playing with instinct instead of intellect is what makes Josh Allen one of the greatest of all time. So
I want to stop him.
Right. You got to let it, you have to live for the most part with that because of just the type of player he is. But come on, man. And you got to have a little bit of intellect there. You got to know, get down, don't lose the ball. It did cost him a big 3 points in a very, very close game. That was kind of one of the easiest awards for me, actually. That was, again, that was just everything that was bad.
But that's why, like I said, I didn't even have the Cooks one because the Cooks one was a bad call. It was unfortunate. But who am I blaming for that? Am I blaming Josh Allen for that throw that caused an interception? No. Am I blaming Brandon Cooks? No, I think he caught it. So who am I even blaming on the worst play of the year if I'm giving it to the Brandon Cooks, catch, no catch?
I got one more kind of, I don't know if it's a question or not. And like I said, we'll be talking plenty in the weeks to come about free agency and the draft and where the direction of this team may go. But I kind of want to circle back to the Super Bowl because I look at a couple players from Seattle that are pending free agents right now, 3 of them specifically, that, and they won't break the bank. At least I don't think they're going to break the bank. But I look at the wide receiver, Rashid Shaheed, that a lot of people had the Bills tied to, as a potential trade candidate during the trade deadline before he goes to Seattle. Speed guy down the field, can make big plays, and also a really good punt returner. You don't want Shakir back there next year, ideally returning punts again. And then 2 defensive backs. That safety, Kobe Bryant, I like him a lot. I could picture him playing next to Cole Bishop, and that could be fun. He's interchangeable. He's a good deep free safety who's capable of playing in the box, kind of versatile, like Cole Bishop. And then their nickel corner, because I'm not convinced the Bills are not going to move on from Teron Jackson. I'm gonna put Teron Johnson. I'm sorry. I'm gonna put that out there. Josh Jobe, their nickel corner, got into it with Stephon Diggs. They actually got away with throwing a punch at Stephon Diggs, which you'd love to see that. But those are 3 free agents that Seattle has. I'm like, if you want to pick the bones of a Super Bowl champion, those 1 or 2 of those guys off that roster would be good. If you got any thoughts about any of them, and just generally speaking, as we get ready to start talking about the Bills offseason with you on this show, the direction that you would like to see this team go, like what would you ideally like to see? You don't have to name specific players, but like ideally, where would you like to see this offseason go for the Bills? Clearly, it's going to be one that's going to have plenty of turnover just because of the sheer volume of Bills pending free agents, if nothing else.
If you believe Spot Track and their market values, you picked the 3 biggest market values on the Seahawks. So I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah, you picked the 3 highest paid guys that are going to get contracts this offseason. So they even had Joby ahead of Kenneth Walker, who's a free agent after winning Super Bowl MVP. That might change the numbers a little bit. Winning Super Bowl MVP could bump him up a little bit.
Wow, I didn't realize that, man. What are they?
Yeah. So Kobe Bryant, $14.3 million per year. Shaheed, $14.1 million per year, which that's a big number. And then Joby was 9.7. So yeah.
Wow.
Those are big numbers. I'm fully invested in a complete defensive revamp.
Yeah.
I think when you have Josh Allen and James Cook, you can get by with a lot of things on the offensive side of the ball. And of course, I thought that heading into the 2025 season, and we saw what the wide receivers did, but also the Bills scored a crap ton of points with even with that crappy wide receiver room. So I think the Bills can get by on offense with Joe Brady as head coach, Josh Allen as quarterback. They're definitely going to solidify the offensive line. They have 2 free agents there. So you're going to see them. I would imagine one person that's already on the roster is going to slide into one of those spots.
Yeah.
And then they're going to sign somebody else for the other one. Whether it's Connor McGovern re-signing or whatever. I don't think you're going to get Cedric Van Granger as the starting center, Alec Anderson is your left guard, and 32-year-old Deion Dawkins is your left tackle. I don't see that happening. It's not to say it can't, but just they don't have the depth behind those guys for me to feel comfortable about that anyway. So even if those guys end up being the starting, 3 on the left side, they're going to sign somebody and draft people to compete with those guys. So it's not going to be handed to them. So offensive side of the ball with those 2 offensive line spots, notwithstanding, I do think that defense is going to be the main focus of this offseason, with Brandon Beane and Jim Leonard kind of revamping that side of the ball, especially after we saw what the Patriots, Seahawks, and Eagles have done over the last 2 years, and to a lesser extent, the Chiefs, building around their defense as well to get to the Super Bowl last year. I think that that's kind of where the Bills are going to end up going, is that defensive revamp this offseason.
I'm with you 100%. And again, we'll get into more specifics down the road a little bit, but offensively, yeah, I would re-sign Connor McGovern.
I would
and
too.
I would plug in Alec Anderson. I think he's developed. He takes over for David Edwards. David Edwards deserves a payday. Bills just can't do it. So let Alec Anderson go.
And that's what they did when Edwards entered the lineup, is that he was just the next guy up. They put him into that left guard spot, and he's making like nothing essentially the last 2 years. And they worked him into the 6th offensive lineman into the starting lineup. It's like the exact same trajectory with Alec Anderson.
Yeah. David Edwards, $3 million a year for over 2 years each. He's going to get a lot more than that next month, and good for him. He deserves it. Good for him. I'm happy for him. Another thing you said last week on the show when we were doing our positional analysis, I never thought of Dawson Knox being as anything other than gone. I wouldn't mind restructuring him now and keeping him. I like that tight end room. It was our highest graded room of the season. You gave them an A+ last week on the show. Hey, he looked good. And Dalton Kincaid, I don't know that you're going to get a 17-game, 60% of the snap Dalton Kincaid ever for the Bills. So I like the idea of bringing Knox back. You got to clearly restructure him, but there's a lot of room. He's got 2 void years. So I feel like there's room to do something with his contract. I'd like to see him back. But besides that, obviously you got to get a wide receiver. Palmer and Shakir are going to be back for sure. Samuel's definitely getting cut. I don't know about Keon. We could talk about him more another time, but I could see him not back. Maybe get Brandon Cooks back as your 4th receiver. I don't know. But that's got to be their defense, quantity, offense. You got to go get a receiver. Whether it's an A.J. Brown, it's got to be somebody of note. Maybe Mike Evans and free agency. I don't know what you do, coupled with an early round draft pick as well. They got to redo that receiver room. It has to be better. But besides that, I think the offense is mostly running back. Defense, yeah, I don't know, a bunch of pieces on the line, especially the line. I think the linebacking room could be look really, really different. I think 3/4 of the safety room is solid and set. But that linebacker room is going to be, I think, radically different for the Bills next year as well. So we'll see, man.
The Dawson Knox of it all, like he's scheduled to make $10.7 million next year. He's not going to make that on the open market. So he has incentive to restructure and stay with the Bills, stay with Joe Brady, stay with Josh Allen. I don't know what that number might be, but he has no guaranteed salary for next year. So like I said, if they cut him, he's not going to be 10.7. So
no,
yeah.
It feels like a marriage that could work for both teams. I'll end by saying this with Dawson Knox too. I heard Sal Capaccio, I was listening to WGR on Tuesday morning, and he mentioned Knox, and he said a good landing spot for him could be, if it's not Buffalo, Tennessee. Brian Gable's there. Tennessee, well, obviously Tennessee needs weapons, and he lives in Tennessee. He owns a home. He still owns a home in Tennessee. So who knows? Maybe Dawson Knox can be a Tennessee tight end, but I'd like to keep him. So
He owns one in Western New York too. So there you go.
Yeah. Hey, man, you sold me on him. I keep that room, run that room back. I got no issue. But again, Lot 2, they develop guys. Lot 2 can move up and Oz can move up to his role. So I wouldn't bet on that, but I'm open to them keeping Dawson Knox. All right. Anyway, let's put a wrap on this. Make sure you follow Matt on Blue Sky primarily and Twitter. He sneaks a couple tweets in there at Matt Rich Warren. Of course, check out SB Nation, more specifically Buffalo Rumblings, of course. Awesome one-stop site, whether it's for articles and the fan community stuff that is just really growing. The engagement there is a lot of fun to read and to be a part of. It's just like kind of these shows where people comment and they get going on the YouTube page. It's like that with Rumblings too on a lot of topics. So really good stuff. Appreciate you as always, buddy.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys, be back. Thad Brown is going to join me on the show tomorrow.